A city in California is suing a real estate firm for converting rent controlled units into short term rentals. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the great state of California, one of the few places in the United States where rent control policies still are available. Okay, so unfortunately for the landlords there, what it means is that they have a very hard time making a profit based on, how much the government allows them to charge for rents. So this article is going over the story of how one real estate firm, they allegedly broke the law and went against the city rules and regulations for rent controlled units, and then got all the tenants out of this building who were under rent control, and then started just renting it out on the short-term rental market like Airbnb or VRBO and platforms like that. But before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know, if you are a landlord in a rent-controlled city, would you do whatever you could to get those tenants out of there? I know I would, okay? If I knew I could bring my rents back up to market level just by getting the old tenants out of the building, I mean, that's the only way to keep your business viable, okay? Nobody's gonna go and buy a rent-controlled apartment building, do a whole bunch of upgrades on it, and then not be able to charge any higher rents than they could before. That would just be dumb. So this company, they had a vested interest in doing just that. And yeah, maybe they went against the law or the rules that were in place in that city, but I don't disagree with them, okay? I think that they have to press the city and do whatever it takes just to make a profit, because otherwise there's no incentive to do any sort of investing in a place that has rent control. So this article comes from smmirror.com, and it says, Santa Monica sues real estate firm for converting rent-controlled units into vacation rentals. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting article, so let's get into it. Santa Monica is suing a real estate corporation for converting a rent-controlled apartment building into alleged illegal vacation rentals. In a lawsuit filed on September 28, 2021, the Santa Monica Rent Control Board and the City of Santa Monica allege that since 2018, NMS Properties, Inc. and its affiliates have violated and continue to violate the State Ellis Act and local rent control regulations, as well as laws intended to protect long-term tenants and preserve the city's affordable housing stock. The lawsuit alleges that the owners and managers of the residential rental property at 1242 10th Street, including WMNS Communities LLC and NMS Properties Inc., unlawfully converted what had once been a rent-controlled 10-unit multifamily residential apartment building with stable long-term tenants into a building that is now used for unlawful vacation rentals and unlawful rental activity. Now, this is an interesting thing right here, okay? So I'm a person who believes in the rights of the property owner to do whatever they want with the property that they own. Now, the city itself is saying that, hey, these vacation rentals are unlawful. And I'm not sure if they are unlawful because vacation rentals themselves are banned within the city limits, which I've heard a lot of cities doing that, or if they're unlawful because of the way that they removed these tenants and then converted them into vacation rental. So maybe the article goes more into that in the next few paragraphs. The complaint alleges that in 2015, the defendant owners bought the properties at 1238 and 1242 10th Street and started renovations with the purpose of upgrading the units for future market rate rentals with modern kitchen appliances, in-unit washer dryers, smart technologies, and more. In addition, the complaint claims that the dangerous conditions created by the extensive construction drove many tenants out of the building. The lawsuit further alleges that when the last three tenants at 1242 10th Street refused to leave or be bought out, the owners invoked the Ellis Act as a mechanism to remove them from their rent-controlled units, but did not leave the residential rental business as required. So these are typical real estate investors, okay? They bought the property with the intention of fixing it up and then raising the rents up to market level so that they would have a return on investment. So the problem with rent control is if you leave those rent control tenants in there, you can't get any higher rents, even if you do a 100% upgrade, do all this stuff like they did, put in the modern appliances, the washer dryers, smart technologies and all that. There's no incentive whatsoever for a landlord to do any of that if you have no ability to raise rents on these tenants. So it makes sense that you would want landlords to come in and fix these properties up so that the units are nicer, so that the city has nicer buildings with new technologies in it. But no, instead they would rather have this rent control. And in places like New York, what you see is the rent control buildings are falling apart. They got holes in the ceilings. You've got antiquated technology. I mean, a lot of the things inside the units are obsolete because the landlords have no money and no incentive to actually do these upgrades. The only thing they will do is the bare minimum just to keep the place livable. And then, the tenant doesn't have to pay any additional rent. So, yeah, I mean, it seems ridiculous to me that this city would actually think that a landlord would invest millions of dollars. Probably the cap rate in this city is unbelievably low for these buildings. So they probably invested millions of dollars buying the building, doing tons of upgrades, and then they expect the landlords to not raise rents and not want to get rid of these tenants who are paying super duper low rates. I mean, of course they're going to want to do that. But, I will say this. Landlords should know the cities that they are investing in and follow the rules that those cities have in place. So I partially blame these landlords for going in there and thinking they could just get away with it, when they should have never been investing there in the first place. The purpose of the Ellis Act is to allow landlords who intend to get out of the rental business to evict tenants who would otherwise have a right to remain in their homes. It is not designed as a means of evading rent control by driving out long-term tenants in order to command higher market rental rates, said Allison Reagan, General Counsel for the Santa Monica Rent Control Board. The complaint alleges that after invoking the Ellis Act, the owners placed ads on sites such as apartments.com, westsiderentals.com, and mysuite.com, which advertised the units as fully furnished and available for rent. According to a rent control board investigator who visited the property in December 2018, a month after the units were considered withdrawn from the rental market, the units had been recently renovated and staged for occupancy. So I think I know what these owners are going to, claim in their defense, okay? Now, I'm not 100% sure of this, but this is what my thoughts are, okay? So the Ellis Act in California is intended so that you can get these tenants out of your property if you intend on leaving the rental business. So my thought is these owners were like, okay, we're getting out of the long-term rental business. So we no longer intend on renting properties long-term to tenants on long-term leases. Instead, we're going to do fully furnished short-term rentals, right? Which is, honestly, it is a completely different business than the long-term rental game, okay? There's a reason why I haven't done Airbnb yet, because it is much more labor intensive. It is much more, much more like the hotel business, okay, than it is like a rental property business is. So these owners, I think that what they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, we were getting out of the long-term rental business and we're getting into the shorter term, fully furnished, more business, more like a hotel. And that is completely different business. So if we were getting out of the business, we weren't committing any crime, and that's why we did that, and that's why we should have been legally able to remove these tenants. Now, I don't know if the courts are going to believe that. We are talking about California here. Obviously, the city didn't believe that. But what is the recourse? Are they going to demand that these landlords allow these people to move back in, paying these super low rents into this new fully furnished, fully remodeled building? I mean, that would seem unjust as well, okay? More likely than not, though, if nothing else, if these landlords lose this case, they're going to have to pay big fines. They're probably going to have to compensate those tenants that they made leave on top of that. And maybe they might even force them to completely shut down their short-term rental business, and turn the place back into a long-term rental place and be stuck back under the rent-controlled law, and that would suck. Okay, so yeah, these owners might have dug a hole for themselves, but once again, this is exactly why I would never invest in California or in any place where they have rent control or tenants' rights that are so strong that they actually supersede the property owner's rights in terms of what they want to do with their property.